Hello, dear friends. I just want to do a quick bit of sports science for football or soccer, but this could be applied to rugby, MMA, pretty much anything. Well, some of it, but money's in football, so I'm going to do just a quick overview of some ideas for sports science for football. So, first thing, I see a lot of goal setting, and it's a little bit misunderstood. So, you've got your outcome goals and you've got your process goals. So, outcome goal for a manager might be finish top three in a league. So probably if he knows what he's doing, he's going to write that down. Might even stick it up in the changing room. Let's finish top three in the league, right? Problem with that on its own, it can create a lot of frustration and it can create a lot of anxiety because that's not under your control. And if you're into stoic philosophy, which you should be, you need to focus on what is yours to do. Focus on what you can control, not what other people are doing. Okay, so outcome goals should be accompanied with process goals, what you can control. So a manager's process goals, excuse me as I read off my notes, might be to issue a pre-season survey to identify any past injuries, weaknesses, any niggles. Say people got lower back problems, have had hamstring tears in the past, and then put in place solutions for those problems. So say hamstring problems, you might give them a stretch, give them some ideas of like using a foam roller pre-training, or even these heated leggings you can get now when you're training in the winter, just to keep the muscles warm, less likely to get injured. So identify physiological but also psychological problems. One thing you should be able to do as a good manager, I think, is be able to identify who's an introverted, anxious player, and if he's underperforming, he's probably nervous, and you should be able to tell by his body language. But and the type of mistakes he's making. But if it's down in a survey, you've identified that. If you can get hold of a decent psychological survey, not like a massive one, just might be 10 questions, might take him a couple of minutes to fill in. All right, he gets anxious and he's playing big games. So, last thing I want to do on a sideline is give him a massive bollocking because that's going to make him perform even worse. So, everything needs to be specific. If you're going to be professional about being a manager, or if you're going to be the best manager you can be, it's got to be specific. Every bit of feedback, every bit of training, ideally, it can't always be like this, obviously, tailored to the individual because the needs of the person or the player are just different every time. If you've got an introverted 16-year-old and he's got a load of old, grumpy old men on the sideline screaming at him because he's had a bad touch and a load of other players, should be looking after that guy. He's going to get nervous. Should be building his confidence. Whereas might have another cocky 16-year-old who's up his own, up himself a bit lazy. Maybe he needs a different type of motivation, if you like. He needs addressing completely differently. If you just got a blanket thing of getting frustrated as a manager and shouting at your players, you're a crap manager. And you need to be looking at specific feedback as well. So make sure, in terms of your own process goals, you want to give technical feedback. So if someone's making a mistake, they're having a bad touch, right, what's going on there? Firstly, is it psychological? Does he need calming down? Secondly, is it a technical thing? Is it a wet pitch? Is he misjudging it? Does he need to, I don't know, keep his eye on the ball? Technical, specific feedback, immediate. Don't get frustrated and shout at your players. So I've ranted on a bit there, ironically, about that one process goal. But yeah, so just make sure, identify specific needs, both physiological and psychological. Get yourself a good survey. Just find one online and start with that pre-season. Encourage your players. So these are my process goals. Number 2, how can we get top 3 in the league? Encourage my players to turn up 10 minutes early to training and be proactive with their warm-ups. So it annoys me sometimes when I see people waiting around for lessons in the gym and they've got the mats to themselves and they just sat there waiting. Personal thing, I like it when people are proactive and they're warming up, just because you're less likely to get injured. And also, if you're doing an extra 10 minutes of training every day, and if it's something you want to work on, whether it's just mobility and stuff you can incorporate in your warm-up or something technical, 10 minutes, if that's done 3 times a week, in a year's time, that specific technical skill you're working on, you're going to improve on that massively. And because you're warming up, you're much more less likely to get injured, which gives you continuity, which again helps you improve game upon game. So second process goal, encourage your players to turn up early. Give them specific warm-up routines tailored to the survey. Learn to identify anxious player versus a demotivated player, which we've looked at. Praise in public and give feedback in private. So unless you've got a really arrogant player or something, and you think you're Alex Ferguson, that's old school now. You want to be more like Klopp. You need to be encouraging your players, being accountable as a manager, stop finger pointing at your players for doing this, that, and the other, I think, from a sports psychology point of view. And always give them praise in public, well done. And if you got specific feedback you need to pull them out for, then do it in private. Otherwise, you're just going to demotivate people and kill morale. So yeah, specificity, give a survey, ID, physiological, psychological needs. But as well as your specific individual needs, one of your process goals as a manager might be to look at the team needs as well, which might come out of, if you're lucky enough to have game videos and game analytics, you can pull it from there. But you might want to speak again to the players with perhaps a survey or just an informal chat. What are your frustrations? What do you think we could do better on corners? Any suggestions moving forward? What type of movement could we use better? I remember playing loads of teams and like the strikers just kind of run away from me as a midfielder. Like as I can curl a ball around, it's going to drop directly in front of them. That was my frustration. I just like it if the right winger and the centre forward would swap over, and then you can just. But anyway, that'd be my frustration. That'd be my feedback, and then you got stuff you can work on technically. Then tactically. So that's a bit of sports psychology. Outcome goals. Always have your process goals. Outcome goals. Be smart. So specific, measurable, attainable, time phased. I can't remember what the other one is. Smart goals. Anyway, Google that. Oh yeah, so quick bit of thing on. So that's psychology. Bit of an overview. Took me ages actually. I want to do this in 5 minutes. Next thing would be a bit of sports physiology, I guess. So maybe halftime. A couple of studies I've looked at and have said halftime, people sit down, players sit down, your muscle temperature drops, and then the speed, like a sprint performance, they called it in one of the studies. Your top speed and the amount of sprinting you do would go down and correlated to muscle temperature. So you want to avoid that. So even if you sat down and you had some way of keeping the heat in the room, or just keep players just moving around, even if you like, there's foods that will increase your muscle temperature as well. Like if you chew on ginger, I'm not saying that's a good idea, but something to consider. You don't want your players, you want them to get hydrated, but you also want to keep them warm. There's a balance. And also in terms of hydration, you probably want 5 to 10% maltodextrin drink with some electrolytes in it. It's like Lucasade basically. Probably about 200 milliliters at halftime. Every 20 minutes, you want about 150 milliliters if you want to keep as hydrated as possible. Yeah, so that's just a tip on halftime in terms of sports physiology. There's loads you can go on about that, but in terms of nutrition, we all know like post workout or post training, you want loads of carbs, insulin levels are higher. It's a good time to have creatine, good time to have protein. One thing I'm quite interested in at the moment, it's a bit controversial, but the world of nootropics. So you got supplements as well. A lot of players struggle to focus, and psychology again, like you obviously got meditation, visualization helps. But there are supplements, like there's one called Alpha GPC, which is great for helping you focus. Huperzine A is another one as well. So look at these. Don't take my word for it, especially with supplements. Things you might want to research as a manager or a player as well. Nootropics, quite a new thing. You got adaptogens as well. Adaptogens aren't really touched on in sports nutrition. It's all about post training and pre and post match. Whereas there's stuff like adaptogens, lower your cortisol levels, can improve your well-being, which will improve your immune system, which again is going to help you recover and perform better. So nootropics, adaptogens, two controversial-ish things that might be worth looking at. Give you a bit of an edge. Talking of controversial, there's in terms of injury healing, there's a compound called BPC 157. There's another one called MK677, which might be banned by the IOC, I think, and all the doping commissions. But I think Body Protective Compound 157. It's meant to be in the MMA and CrossFit community. It's meant to be quite good for healing injuries. Again, don't take my word for it. Check it out yourself. Whether that's worth looking into if you've got an injury you want to heal up. And then I just put down just stuff for training for speed. Speed's massive, sprint speed, especially if you're striker or defender. Are you just doing generic bodybuilding stuff at the gym, or are you doing incorporating plyometrics, Olympic lifts? And are you looking at technique when you're sprinting as well, like high knees, using your arms properly, your head carriage correct? And are you working on changing directions? A massive thing as well in terms of speed for football. And that's it, except for one final thing, which I thought was really interesting to remember from university, was math stats for managers. So statistics, especially if you've got like Prozone or something that's giving you analytical data. My example here is I've simplified it all to make the maths easier for me. So say you're Everton in the 90s or 80s. You got Tony Cotter, you got Graham Sharp. Every time you get a half chance, I know it's not a very quantified term, but half chance, you've got a 10% chance of scoring. You're playing Luton. I don't know who they had, was it Mickey Quinn or someone, but they weren't as good. And let's just say, just for ease, they're not as good. 1% chance of scoring if they get, because their strikers aren't as good. Everton's defenders are really good, so it's half of them score. Everton's strikers are really good. Luton's defenders aren't as good. So every time Everton get the ball in a goal scoring opportunity, it's a lot easier for them. And let's say Luton shut down the game. They keep it, they're very defensive. They keep all their players in their half. And they minimise Everton to 5 half chances, 5 goal scoring opportunities. So that means there's about a 50% chance Everton aren't going to score, because they've got 10% chance of scoring. On average, they're going to need 10 opportunities. So if Luton can close the game down and only give them 5, then there's a good chance it's going to be a 0-0 draw, 0-0 draw. So that's a crap illustration of how you can use statistics to manipulate your tactics on the game. But if you bring corners in, if you bring throw-ins in, and you can work out probability, then as a manager you can work out tactics in a quite data-driven way, rather than just on a gut instinct or whatever it is managers do. So that's a quick. It was a bit goal setting and sports psychology heavy, but that's some of my tips of my overview for sports psychology. I'm thinking about doing some free talks in the summer, perhaps pre-season. Give me a while to put some presentations together. I'll put a link to my website in the description, so if you're interested, please get in contact. Cheers.